Dr. Jaijit, for sharing that you will stay with us as we stay on this topic. China's foreign minister says Beijing trusts Southeast Asian countries to withstand U.S. tariff pressure, urging them to defend their legitimate interests and resist unilateralism and bullying. Speaking after talks with regional partners, he said China believes ASEAN nations will stick to principled positions and safeguard the common interests of the region. On security, he vowed to eradicate the tumor of cross-border crimes, calling for stronger action against online gambling and fraud that threaten the people of both countries. Addressing the Thai-Cambodian border dispute, China called for peaceful coexistence and urged both sides to resolve issues through friendly dialogue. He also said China is ready to create new growth points and with Thailand, focusing on the digital economy, AI, green development, and cross-border e-commerce. Now we go back to our guest discussion with Dr. Jaijit. Thank you, Dr. Jaijit, for staying with us. How significant is China's call for ASEAN nations to resist unilateralism and bullying? And is this direct, maybe attack to U.S.'s tariffs?
Well, it's not just the direct attack to U.S. tariffs, because then that attack will be limited to what's impacting China. But it's more of China trying to become the new, pole or major power in the geopolitics and geoeconomics of the world, and therefore trying to rally around and be the champion of those who are supposedly getting impacted by the US tariffs. More importantly, China has been actively using the ASEAN countries such as Thailand and Cambodia and Vietnam as a stepping stone for their export. So with the rest of the world trying to diversify away from China because of what happened during COVID, which was a supply chain resilience issue, where China stopped goods from going out of China, which were goods of importance. Therefore, there have been restrictions being put in on China by various entities. And as recent as now, where they put a squeeze on rare earth magnets, which has impacted the most important industry of most economies, which is the automobile industry. So given that China has been trying to use the ASEAN countries as a means of relabeling their goods from made in China to made in, let's say Thailand or Indonesia and so on. And similarly in Europe, they have been using Hungary. In the Americas, they've been using Mexico and Colombia as the stepping stones for access to the American markets. And therefore, it is important in China's perspective that there is no further tariffs being put in on these countries. And therefore, there's a direct economic reason for China to call out Thailand and the other ASEAN countries to safeguard their tariffs in respect to US, so that Chinese goods can continue to flow the way they were flowing.
And according to you, Dr. Jaijit, can Southeast Asian countries realistically withstand US tariff pressure without risking anything, given their trade dependencies on both China as well as the US?
I mean, clearly the largest Southeast Asian economy is not even $1 trillion economy. And therefore, they're 1/30th the size of the US economy. There is absolutely no bargaining power that the Southeast Asian economies have in respect to the US. So they have to have other means of dealing with US. And really, the point is that the US has not asked for what needs to be done from these countries. It's a tariff put in, but what is the quid pro quo there that the US is asking for the tariffs to be restored to a more manageable level? And in that vacuum, it gets very difficult for the ASEAN countries to even respond. So it's going to be a very tough time for these countries, because clearly the US is a very large market for them. It's a very critical market for them, but there is no clarity as to what the US expects from them for the trade tariffs to be restored to its former levels.
And Dr. Jaijit, lastly, with China positioning itself as a defender of multilateralism. How credible is that narrative given its own assertive behavior recently, accessing South China Sea and other regional disputes?
Well, as your question itself indicates, the ASEAN countries do look at China very suspiciously for historical reasons and for the actions that China has taken in the recent past. If China is really serious about being the alternate pole, China should open up its own markets, which China hasn't. So, if Thailand produces shoes, can those made in Thailand shoes be sold in China? The answer is no. China is a very small market for finished goods from the ASEAN countries, and therefore, what China is offering to ASEAN countries is mostly words and using them as a country for relabeling the made in China goods into the locally manufactured goods. Beyond that, China is not really doing anything significant in that sense, and therefore, I personally doubt that the ASEAN countries will fall for it, and they will continue to look at China in a suspicious manner, as we have seen on a continued basis.
Thank you, Dr. Jaijit, for sharing that insight. You will stay with us as we stay on the topic. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva says he'll